sisi tukishika hatamu ya utawala hao wezi wataingia ndani wote. Sawa. Na pesa ya taifa tutaweka kwa mikono ya taifa kwa upande ya maendeleo. Sawa sawa. Mko tayari? Mko tayari? Wangapi wako tayari nione kwa mkono?
Hawa watu wanacheza tu shere. Hawana mpango kamili. Mimi niliwaambia kule wakati wa 2017, niliwaambia hawa watu they are planless, they are rudderless, they are agendaless. Na ndio mnaona saa hii wanahangaika, hawajui wako upinzani, wako kwa serikali. Wakiwa kwa serikali wanaibia vijana, wakiwa kwa upinzani wanaibia watu wagonjwa kupitia Kemsa billionaires. Na saa hii wanataka kutupatia lecture ya mambo ya anti-corruption. Please, you better be ashamed of yourselves.
Wow, the two leaders there, Deputy President William Ruto and the ODM leader Raila Odinga, speaking at each other. But I want just to start, allow me to start with, where do I start now? Of course, I think I have the right of reply. I'm torn between the two members of ODM because I want to be sure, because
the senator.
Raila Odinga is saying, that's what you did there. Raila Odinga is saying that tukishika hatamu, wezi hawa watakuwa ndani wote. Is Raila Odinga declaring his candidature for 2022?
I think that is a question for the Honorable Prime Minister to answer. In my view, I think I would try and maybe give my comments on some of the statements that he made in terms of corruption. And I've always been on record saying that we are all corrupt. All of us are corrupt. No one is a saint in this country. And it is a shame.
You said all of us are corrupt?
All of us. Every single Kenyan is corrupt.
How corrupt are you?
Very corrupt. Our leaders are all corrupt. Yes, because I can be honest, and there's no point of lying, because in Parliament, if you're in Parliament, and my dear sister will tell you what happens in Parliament, there are no saints there. They are all corrupt. I mean, it is influence. It is based, it is not on merit. And this is why I keep on saying that what we need to do now is to try as much as we can, and I know it is very difficult, to try and now inculcate a culture of meritocracy rather than interest. Because when we want certain legislation to pass, and this is a practice that is seen all over the world. In Kenya we call it corruption. In the Western world they call it lobbying or the cost of doing business. But in a nutshell, everything is corrupt, because if it's a piece of legislation, you will see it has got certain interest, money exchange hands, all the time. So really, the issue that the line that I would plead that we take is one that will try and reconcile, will try and bring people together to see the importance of this country. I am on record, and I'll keep on saying that we are only passing through. When I sit here, and I look at my colleagues there, and I look at myself on the side, I wonder how many people have sat in these seats and they're gone. And they have spoken about corruption. It doesn't matter how much wealth you amass in this world, you will die and leave it here. So I think the key most important thing is for us to realize that we have a good country, and this country requires us to help our youth get employed. We require us to care about our senior citizen. One of the things that really baffles me and hurts me is that if you look at the former councillors, of this country, and they are spread across the 47 counties. When the transitioning authority was in place, they did not think about their pension. If now my dear sister, sort of like decides to quit, or maybe she's not nominated or she doesn't go for an election, she'll get a pension. But those poor councillors, when they left, they never got anything. They are languishing in poverty. There are some other members of parliament who are also always working, former member of parliament who are also working in the parliament precinct, seeking to be able to get help. And we have teachers, we have institutions that do not care about the civil servants, governments that do not pay their statutory deductions. So really all these corruptions, is what is ailing this country. And my plea is that we can all start talking about how we can make sure we take care of these people, take care of the former councillors, take care of the former civil servants who have paid their dues and they have never been paid back, you know. We have to reward people for the time that they will live in this country or in this world, you know, so that when we are gone, at least those who will come after us, they can continue doing that for future generation. So really, the issue of corruption, you know, it's not, no one should talk about corruption as if they are saint. I can be honest with that.
That's interesting that you should say that, because it's also the cause of split that you see focused on by the two dailies, that is the Standard and the Daily Nation. But let's listen to two other leaders who are saying that they are in the race for 2022, Speaker Muturi and Musalia Mudavadi from ANC. Listen.
David, we will be able to clinch that top seat. You are the best ambassadors that I can think of. And we must not be to take a shoshomie. We must also put ourselves at the level of every other person, any other person that has the same dream. And I've given you my vision of a country that is ruled through discipline and order. And I want to be the person who does that. Amen. And you are not going to do it when you are number 2 or number 3. You can only do it when you are number 1.
If God grants me the opportunity to be the leader of this country, I will lower the taxes. Tutapunguza ushuru. How will we lower the taxes? We shall fight corruption. We shall get rid of wastage. Sasa mama anatoroka saloon kwa sababu mama ni magumu, lakini KRA imemfuata paka kwa jikoni kuongeza bei ya gas. Sijui Ukuru ya Tani anafikiria nini. But this is what is hurting us.
Okay, two leaders. Speaker Muturi, he's in the race. He wants a disciplined and an orderly nation, and he'll do that when he is number 1. Musalia Mudavadi will lower taxes, he'll fight corruption, and he will reduce wastage if elected president. And Speaker Kagusha, so looking at this, have we seen it all? The next president, have we already seen him? It's just a matter of waiting to vote?
Yes, of course. The next president is amongst the top politicians that you see. We are not likely
What's your short list?
I mean, how many politicians are at the top? We have Deputy President William Ruto and Raila Odinga. We are either going to have one of them in the next general election, and one of them will in fact be the president of the Republic of Kenya. And there is nothing that really we can sugarcoat about. It's not going to be
so all these other... Speaker Muturi, Musalia Mudavadi?
I mean,
Kalonzo Musyoka?
They are trying because there is a 2027 and there is 2032. There's a future. And of course, they're also trying because there will be need for the negotiation to happen as to who will be the running mate. There will be the need for people to also find themselves in a government. And so when you declare yourself as a presidential candidate, then you put yourself on a level that you're able now to bargain and to negotiate in the coming general election. And so I would treat someone like Musalia Mudavadi, someone like, however serious sometimes he says he is, and someone like Gideon Moi, someone like Muturi, and all those other candidates that we are having now who say they are going to run for presidency. They're basically negotiating. They're just creating that platform so that they can be able to negotiate. Otherwise, the competition is going to be between two people. And this, as I say, as a political analyst, we will be here again to evaluate this in the coming 2 years or even 1 year, that the candidates will be the two of them, and that one of them will be winning the race to be the next president of Kenya. As to the issue of corruption, I find quite a bit of hypocrisy, just like the issue that We have leaders who are accusing others of politicking. But you find that our Kenyan politicians, elite, have politicked throughout. From the time we stopped or from the time we finished our election 2017, we have had politics all this time. And similarly on this issue of corruption, you find that these leaders that we have in Kenya have had an opportunity, each one of them at their given time, to take very serious action against corruption. And for that reason, we can't keep promising people about future action. In fact, it is possible to take action today. If it is someone like the deputy president, he's still the deputy president. So whatever action that he may require to take on corruption, he can do it today. When we talk about someone like Raila Odinga, he is, I don't know whether to say the de facto deputy head of government in Kenya. I mean, if he wants to take action, he can be able to take action. The kind of energy we have seen Raila Odinga employ.
You say that, yet you know very well he has no instruments of power.
I have talked of de facto. you see this?
Oh dear.
See this?
Oh dear.
Raila Odinga doesn't have the instruments of power. But look at how much influence Raila Odinga wields in this country. Look at how much he has influenced.
Can he direct any state agency to do anything?
I mean, some of them have reported to him in the past. Have you forgotten? We have had state agencies reporting to the Capitol Hill every now and then to Raila Odinga on what is happening in government. Have you forgotten that? That has happened in this country.
Which agency, Speaker?
Yeah? That has happened recently. In fact, we have had quite a number of them going to brief him on how far we are, including commissions, including some of the agencies. But that notwithstanding, let's talk about the influence that Raila Odinga wields in this government.
That is called leadership. I was actually, Sam, going to ask you to request me to let the speaker know that there's a difference between leadership and authority.
Allow him to finish.
I just rest my case. I just wanted to let him know that.
Have you say.
Prof.
Please proceed, Speaker.
Yeah, I don't know.
Go on.
I don't know, but I think my comments today seems to be getting Prof off the feet. I realized a little earlier she was a little bit incensed with my comments, and actually she tried to say that
it's okay, just carry on with your
I have a certain leaning, but she also needs to remember that
we are debating.
That Nyeri County Assembly was number 24 in passing the BBI, and so when we objectively come here and say that there are serious headwinds ahead in terms of logistics, politically and economically, then she just needs to understand that we are really not against her idea of BBI, but you're just trying to look at things objectively in terms of
my idea.
the way forward.
You were talking about the presidential bids and that Raila Odinga wields power.
Yeah, he wields power. If you look at where we are with the issue of the constitution review, the BBI, we have had budget allocation. We have had so much influence from the ODM party leader in terms of what really happens with the BBI and the fact that he has a direct reach to His Excellency the President. So that leadership, that influence that he wields, he can wield the same influence today to push for purge on matters corruption. So promising a purge in coming 2 or 3 years to Kenyans today who are really struggling with the issues of their daily bread today, and they feel that the money they pay to government to give them services is taken away from them through corrupt means, you then get out of order.
Okay, Speaker, let's listen to the two leaders because they spoke at length about that, of course, being attacks against each other, Raila Odinga and William Ruto.
Makanisa mekuja, fungua amekuja na ile magunia ya pesa mengia naye ndani ya kanisa. Kanisa wanakuja nini? Jamaa sana nasema huyu jamaa ni mkarimu sana. Jamaa ni mtu ambaye anamcha Mungu. Ana heshima kwa Mwenyezi Mungu. Kabisa yeye anasaidia makanisa, anasaidia wakina mama, anasaidia vijana, lakini ile pesa anakuja naye ni ile pesa yenu ambayo yeye ameiba. Hiyo mamilioni ametoa wapi? Wewe unakuja unanunuliwa na ile pesa yako. Pesa ambayo amebeba hiyo mamilioni ametoa wapi? Hakuna mtu anauliza hiyo pesa. Wezi ambao natakana wawe shimulatewa. wanatembea na mahelikopta kila mahali kuja hapa kutoa pesa pande hii, pande hii, pande hii. Hii ni taifa gani? Hii ni taifa gani? Sisi tukishika hatamu ya utawala, hao wezi wataingia ndani wote.
Ile mashtaka wameniweka ati nimesaidia kanisa, ati nimesaidia bodaboda, ati nimesaidia kina mama, hawajakosea. Ni kweli nimewasaidia. Na mimi nataka niwaambie, leo tunawasaidia kwa pesa ya mfuko, lakini mwaka ujao kwa mapenzi ya Mungu tutaweka pesa ya serikali bilioni 30 kila mwaka kusaidia bodaboda, mama mboga, mtu wa kiosk na wale wafanyabiashara wengine wote, na pesa ya serikali, kwa sababu hata hawa wa hapa chini wanalipa ushuru kama nyinyi.
All right, so those are the two leaders. Of course, in several other clips, they're accusing each other of being corrupt. Who is more corrupt, or who is not?
I think some. Let me first start by just indicating to the Honorable Speaker that I sit on this table not just as a member of Parliament, but also as a leader who recognizes when sometimes a fellow leader might be engaging in what, as he talked earlier during our break about the Gender Commission, in methods that are seen to be of gender dominance. So there are times when you find that you could have two leaders. One is male and one is female, and they are leaders because leadership is gender neutral. I think as you sit and listen to us talk here, everybody can see that you don't have to be of a particular gender to be a leader. But there is a culture, and I start this way because I'm coming to the culture of corruption. There is a culture where at times when a male is a leader, then they forget that the female is a leader as well. And they try to sort of make them invisible or interrupt them. So when he saw me getting back, I was just telling him that it's something that can go both ways. I think I really just wanted to put that context. It wasn't really so much that I am incensed. I am just honestly, because I owe it, because I have a founder commissioner in the national, it was then National Gender and Development Commission. It is now the Gender Equality Commission. And I just want to indicate that there are ways in which we have to practically demonstrate a few things. But now coming to the questions that you have raised about corruption. I think the culture that we have in Kenya has normalized corruption to the extent that there is a way that Kenyans begin to even wonder why you are talking about corruption. And I think I want to start by looking at the two issues that came in the clips that you shared from the Deputy President and the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. You could see that what the Deputy President is saying, that it doesn't matter where I got that money. It really, if you ask, the money helped. Didn't it help the church? Didn't it help the women? And I think this is where we need to start this conversation. That Chapter 6 of the Kenyan Constitution is one that we hardly ever give the kind of attention it deserves. The Honorable Senator mentioned that. And indeed, I think, Sam, if we are going to be serious in terms of how we want to take this country forward, then we need to recognize that leadership is really usually just pointing direction and knowing that there are times where what you say might not be popular because people might not be aware that it is something that needs to be done, but that's something that you really must. So my take is that when we are looking at the issue of corruption in Kenya, and if we want, as you raised it by asking me who is more corrupt, I would want to ask that we look at the track record of the leadership that we are talking about. If you were to take any leader in Kenya, and I think we'll be talking about the top politicians, you can talk about, start from the president, the deputy, the Right Honorable Prime Minister, Musalia, Kalonzo. We have all this as the top leadership in this country. I think what would be useful is that we would place these leaders and then we would follow their track record. I would like to say, without fear of contradiction, Sam, that when you look at this leadership, you're going to find that because the culture and framework of Kenya is so corrupt, there will, of course, be areas in which you can say, okay, here, this particular person was affected or was involved or was engaged. But my submission is that you can also see what action they have taken. And I want, as I wind up, to now come to the action that the Right Honorable Prime Minister, Raila Amolo Odinga, took when he had a position. Position gives you authority. When I wanted to sort of just help the Honorable Speaker here, is that he was talking about the Right Honorable Prime Minister as if he is in government with authority. But it is just that, and I'm really happy that he recognizes this, that this is a leader that has influence, whose influence you can feel without the position. Because you can have leaders, and this is my point, Sam, like the Deputy Prime Minister, the Deputy President, he has a position. So the question is, what is he doing with the position? You can talk about the president. You can say, what is the president doing about that position? So you need to look at the track records. And when you're speaking about corruption, and you know that corruption is the key concern that has even driven us to the 2010 Constitution, and then you find leaders who have position, letting you know that don't talk about corruption or where I got the money from. What you need to talk about is whether or not it helped. Then you come back and you ask that this Right Honorable Prime Minister who was talking, when he had authority, did he take any action? And I think, Sam, if you look at the records, you will find that there is a way in which, with the position that he had as the Right Honorable Prime Minister, he did take action, including even with those that he was very close to, which, as you know, is even the Deputy Prime Minister, the Deputy President himself. So I think it is only fair that we come back, as the Senator said, that the fabric of our country has been so soaked in corruption, that we have normalized corruption, that we have celebrated corruption, that what we now must start to ask ourselves is, when we look around, what do we need to do? Okay. And when we look at the track records, who do we think, from track records, not from hearsay, not from power play, has any of these leaders, when given the chance, had the guts to act? And therefore, if we were to let or to have them in position, can we then expect that they would take the action?
And Senator Orekina, because of course there are many people that are offering themselves for the presidency, including Speaker of the National Assembly, Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, and William Ruto. He believes that the two contenders are Raila Odinga and William Ruto. I don't know whether you are persuaded by that. But the second part of that question, if indeed, as she says, that our fabric is so soaked in corruption, is there any chance that this will change come September 2022?
No chance. And I'll put it this way. There are certain advantages of corruption. And you might ask me, what are those advantages? You know, if you're in the corporate world, you'd be seeking dominance and monopolization. And you'd use corruption to be able to speed up the process of policy and administration, and to sort of like circumvent on the issue of bureaucracy. So when you talk about politics and in terms of corruption, one thing that baffles me is that most of those people who have put themselves out there to become president, you know, have been in government for donkey years, you know, and they have taken advantage of their position in government. And knowing that Kenyans are quite gullible and they'll forget that these people who are always there, you know, they ended up hiding their money abroad. Most of these politicians, I can tell you, owns companies in Mauritius. You know, some of them who want to become president of this country. You know, and it is quite sad. And I agree with my colleague that we need to go back to, you know, Article 6 of the, Chapter 6 of the Constitution in terms of the integrity test. A lot of them will fail the integrity test. So it is now upon us either to go the Rwanda way and try to reconcile instead of talking about this corruption on a daily basis, because it doesn't matter whether we talk about it, it will never end. In fact, I'll talk about corruption here, and tomorrow, you know, I'm in a corrupt deal. So we need to be candid enough and say, you know, it is about your own dominance. When you want to dominate, there is no way you will dominate without corruption. Absolutely no way.
If you say that corruption is so serious to the extent that you're even saying that everybody is corrupt, what makes a politician more prone to engaging in corruption?
Greed of money, you know, power. You know, the more money you have, the more power you get. So, and I mean, last week, if you remember my submissions last week, I reminded us of the things that the late Nelson Mandela warned us against. It was the issue of greed. It was the issue of pride and bitterness. When you're on the top, you're full of pride. So you will do whatever it takes for you to be able to remain at the top. You have to be careful not to let that pride, you know, destroy you. For some of us, and not even some of us, all of us who are going, you know, who are trying to get to the top, you know, will have to be very careful on greed. So this greed for money, greed for power, is what will continue building corruption in this country. That notwithstanding, there are people who make their money in a genuine way. And, you know, all these politicians you see, they have their side hustles. You know, and sometimes their side hustles give them money. You know, it gives them quite a lot of money. They perfect it. But like I said, there are certain advantages of corruption. When you are dealing with your side hustle, you want to be able to bypass all the bureaucracies for you to be able to get to the end. So by you using that money or using your influence to be able to, let's say, get served the fastest way than anyone else can be, your goods get to the market faster and you end up making more money. So you are always at an advantage, you know, and you end up having so much money that you can also be able to dish out whenever you want to, you know. So really, the challenge in this country as we speak right now is, since we all know that we are corrupt, since we all know that we keep talking about this corruption, when are we going to allow meritocracy to be the order of the day? When?
Are you willing as a person to travel that route? Because you said yourself as
I'll
well
put it
you're
this way.
corrupt.
It becomes very challenging because, as my sister will tell you in Parliament, when you attempt, you know, to follow a particular path, you're reduced to the issue of numbers. You know, in the Senate, you require 24 votes. Whether you believe in a cause entirely and you lobby for the support of that cause and you convince people to be able that this is what is good for this country. Ultimately, it is all about the Benjamins. You know, how much money can you be able to dish out to these people? And you know, some of my colleagues will tell you.
In Parliament.
You know, yes, and also everywhere else. Some of my colleagues will tell you, listen, man, I mean, that money was brought, I remember that I have the constituencies, I have funerals this weekend, they require donations every time, I only make very little money. So for me to be able to continue being on the top and being in touch with my people, I have to take this money so I can be able to continue dishing out. So really,
Senator,
it is,
that's a
it
very
is
serious
a
statement
very,
that you make here.
and it is true, and it is candid. I don't like lying, I'll tell you the truth.
Who brings that money to you, members of Parliament?
My friend, anyone bring money. Anybody gives money. Members of Parliament give money to each other. When you want certain things done, you want it done and you believe that it's good for the country, even if it takes for you to sell your cows to get money for you to get advantage, you know, to be able to get that thing passed, you will do it. So sometimes, like I say, there are advantages of corruption and disadvantages of corruption. Okay. The advantages of corruption is that sometimes it allows certain good things to thrive. And sometimes it allows you to get on the top. The disadvantages is that it destroys a nation.
And Speaker Kagusha, you lead a number of government in your county. I don't know how much of corruption is going on there. Just a moment, because it appears like it's such an enterprise that is going on. Yeah. But when the political leaders will come and tell us our biggest problem is corruption, unemployment, the economy, high taxation, and we need to resolve all this. If you elect me president, I'll resolve all this. Yet it appears that the political class is very well entrenched into the corruption enterprise. Is there any hope? And don't you think then the entire political class, if at all what he says is true, then they're doing such a disservice to the nation, because how will that human being from Mukurweini, a certain village in Mukurweini, compete with a political leader who is wielding all this power financially and politically?
Yeah, thank you very much. We have had parliamentarians writing memoirs, books. I think Senator Olekina now qualifies to do a memoir on...
Trust me, I'll write a very damaging one. Don't worry about it.
Have you written?
I'm working on it.
Very good. Yeah, so I think that we will be very interested. We have had, I think, one of the Member of Parliament from Coast Region who wrote one, which was also quite intriguing. And many times I have said here, and I'm actually on record having said that I actually think the National Assembly and also the Senate, to some extent, will need to borrow a leaf from the county assemblies. And why I say this? Why I say this?
They both laugh. I don't know why, but just carry on.
I know why they're laughing. It's because it's so predominant at that level that one would almost imagine it can't happen anywhere else. If you come to Nyeri County, for example, I say with this, with tremendous respect to the National Assembly and also the Senate, Governor Kahiga has never had to have a kitty for the MCAs. In fact, that is one of the things we as a county assembly takes a lot of pride in. And not only Governor Kahiga, you don't need to have a kitty for any bill or any motion to pass through the county assembly. I don't know whether maybe it's the weight and the magnitude of the impact in the county assembly that is not as big or as much as it is at the National Assembly. But I have said this before, and I'm on record, that if you go to the county assemblies, you will find quite a number of them do put their governors to check. In fact, we know that some county assemblies have impeached their governors on the account of corruption. We have a very recent one that happened in the Senate the other day, and Senate actually found the governor to have been corrupt, and for that reason, they did chase away the governor. And if we were to see half of what we are seeing in the county assembly, maybe this is also the good thing about devolution, because when you are the lower levels of government, you are able probably to see the impact on the common man in a more clearer way. And so I want to applaud most of the county assemblies. I know some of the county assemblies do survive on that kind of arrangement, but there are also others whereby governors have come with sacks and sacks of money to sanitize themselves, but the county assembly stood their ground and said, we as members of county assembly do start on this ground, and they push an agenda to the end. And we have seen that happening. Now, if that was to happen at the national, just half of that, if the national executive of this country was to put to check by the National Assembly to that level, we would have things moving. And in the past, by the way, it's only that we are kind of now resigning to fate. In the past, we have seen this. We have had a number of people who have come out strongly to resist that kind of status quo, that kind of an arrangement.
Are they enough to match against the numbers?
They may not be, the number may not be sufficient, but remember the statements by Professor Wangari Maathai about the hummingbird story, that we need that one person who will constantly remind us that this is wrong. And you see, that then brings a conscience of our nation back to life.
Right.
So let us not retire to fate, I would say. Let us all agree that the corruption menace has put our country in a very, very awkward position. And by this, I am not saying that it is wrong what the senator has done. I mean, he's just saying the truth. He's saying really how things are. But again, what we need to do is, even for the sake of our common mwananchi, we need to give hope. We need to actually come up and decide that enough is enough.
Okay.
And just my last point, probably the way to finish this also is by depoliticizing corruption. You see the way the political leaders, for them to endear themselves to the public, they mudsling on each other on corruption basis. I think that is one of the ways we stop that, so that at the end of the day, we stop making it look like it's normal, it's okay, it's all right.
All right, so let's end up on this, because, Prof, of course, politics and politicians are important for any nation because they drive the national agenda, but they are not the only important people in a society, because there are many things that have to be done. And so when all this politics facilitates corruption to the disadvantage of wananchi, that would appear like a betrayal of the common covenant that you may have. So do you think there will be any solution? Because Senator Ledama feels like that will not even change in September 2022, 1 month after the presidential election or the general election?
Sam, it honestly depends on who Kenyans elect. And I have a strong belief, perhaps because I've been on this journey, as I indicated from '92, that Kenyans know the difference between a leader that can indeed take up a mantle and make the change, and they know the direction they want to go, but they also know that they have become hopeless because the corruption that we talk about in Kenya is not just in parliament. It is not just in the county assembly. It is with the public. In dealing with issues of politics, you cannot point a finger only at the National Assembly and the Senate or the county assembly. Wherever you go in this country, unfortunately, there is a sense in which people have resigned. And that is why, Sam, you will see that when elections take place, the person who gets elected is likely to be the one who had more money, and therefore who could, as they say, sort of release or give some people money. So my honest view, when we now put aside politics, and we come back to the question you asked me earlier, which I really think is the crux of the matter. Where do I see this country? I actually see this country in a place where corruption has become so entrenched that even the very voters themselves do not vote because they think this person stands for something, but they vote because they have been, quote unquote, influenced and given money. And therefore, as we move to the elections, as we watch and see what BBI is indicating, as we see leaders going around the country and talking to the voters, let us not forget that what we need would be what we have seen in countries like Singapore, where I'm sure most people have seen that social clip that says that if you're going to bring an end to this, you can, but you need to start with the top. Fish gets rotten from the top. If we are going to get an end to the corruption that we are seeing, it is actually even in the church, it is everywhere. There is no sector in this country where corruption is not taking place, and there is no one who indeed thinks that corruption is a wrong thing. But it is because they have lost hope. So Sam, I think what I call on all Kenyans to do, as we go to the 22 elections, Kenyans know those who are going around asking them for votes. Kenyans know the track record of these people. Kenyans know who it is who, if they elect, can have the determination to indeed begin to take action. And allow me to say that if you listen to the clip, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga did mention that if we were to get opportunity, then we would begin to get heads roll. I want to just clarify that when he says that, you asked earlier, is he saying he's on the race? I think the speaker seems to think he is. From where I stand, I want to go back to track record. In 2002, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga said Tosha to somebody else. It really means when you hear him saying we, he didn't say I. It's a question of saying, right now, this is where the country is. One of the key issues is corruption. What we need to do is changes. When we, you don't know. It could be him. It could be someone with whom he gets into a coalition. It could be someone with which there could be another Tosha.
Is he out of the race?
I don't know. Like the senator told you, how can you expect us to announce his candidature? I think I have told you. You know, the thing is, allow me, Sam, I think for a reason, I'm glad that the speaker is now already confirming what I had said earlier. You do not necessarily need to sell your candidate by keep dragging the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga to it. Just speak for your candidate and allow the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga to speak for himself, or let me, the ODM member, if I am, or the senator speak. He hasn't said it.
Professor Jacqueline Odol, let's take a look at some of the feedback. Alula Willis is saying that Ledamo Lekina is saying things as it is. I like the honest leaders who pronounce sin as it is. We are all corrupt, and you can see even how parents corrupt their children with sweets for certain activities to be done. No one is a saint to lecture others. Whoa. Jaya Musoma. Ledamo Lekina has made very gross allegations. I think that he should name few laws that were passed through bribes. That's against their standing orders or any legislative chamber, and that policy is void. If that's true, Kenya is a banana republic. Well, Jacob Abere, just listening to DP Ruto also in charge, Speaker Muturi somewhere, and Mudavadi. They don't have a new agenda or campaign policy to give Kenyans. They are too elitic and double-speaking on what ails our country. Well, they are medieval. All right. Bob Otieno, we know. William Ruto is much better in campaigning than Raila Odinga. Remember, he campaigned for President Uhuru Kenyatta for presidency for 2 terms. I think Raila should look for someone who can tame him. Okay.
Tame who now?
Engineer Lazaro, the future of BBI hangs in the hands of judges after top lawyers from Linda Katiba and anti-BBI use power caliber sensor remote to stop rig. Okay. All right, that's your say. As always, yeah, that was it. As always, you have your say as we continue this conversation. But like I keep saying, it's up to you to make that decision when the time comes. Professor Jacqueline Udol, Speaker Kagusha, and Senator Leda Molekina, thank you all for making time for us. Quite some heated arguments on Twitter, so be sure to look into that and substantiate your allegations. I mean, that's what they're saying. All right.
Leave it out there for you to judge.
He spoke for the Senate.
No?
Okay. This conversation, he spoke as a senator. This conversation continues. Tomorrow we'll be speaking to Secretary Generals of different political parties on the agenda of the political parties and their future towards 2022. Up next is Sporty Monday with Mukami Wambora and her panel. They'll be here to talk about the action of the weekend and what to expect in the coming days. Bye for now. My name is Sam Gituku.